Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We begin with a minute of invoking toughness and evoking hope. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. What is known as the Great Leveler? Share with me, what is known as the Great Leveler? Okay. What is known as the Great Sleep? What is known as the Great Sleep? Death is known as the Great Leveler, the Great Sleep. Death will level all of us. Death will put all of us to sleep. In fact, I'm very careful about sharing that. I consciously and Sheila consciously, we're putting our kids to bed. We don't say we're putting our kids to sleep, because it reminds me of the great sleep. All of us are going to flow through this. Death is universal. Now the death to death, known as Bhagwan. Yama is known as death, but the death to death is Bhagwan, is trying to prepare us for this. This is why shlokas 11 to 30 of Adhyaya 2, so chapter 2, verses 11 to 30, are all insights into flowing through death, not seriously, but in a light way. Now, my experience of those who are dying or those who have died, typically at a gathering or a funeral, these verses are sung. Remember when I taught you Bhaja Govindam or Moha Mudgara? And I said Bhaja means sing, seek, serve. We all sing these verses, but who's seeking these verses? Thinking about this, reflecting on this. Who's serving these verses? Preparing for this universal experience. It's almost like Bhagavan has given us this formula on dealing with this problem and we've regressed. We just sing this. Our course is different. We're not regressing, we're progressing. We don't just sing verses, we seek them, we serve them, we worship them, we love them, we become them. At the end of today's class, we would have covered 32 verses in 30 hours. These 20 verses that people sing, you can sing these in 10 minutes. But that's not our agenda. That will not help us. That's not application. This month we are focusing on applied Gita in challenging. Challenging articles, beings, circumstances. And the last verse we studied was to develop this sense of enough. Enough stress, enough anxiety, enough sadness. Enough lack of energy, enough lack of enthusiasm. When you develop that sense of enough, really what you're doing is letting go of deservership. What causes us sadness, anxiety, stress, what causes a lack of energy and enthusiasm is not physical. It's the mind feeling, I deserve this. And most of the time, I'm not getting what I deserve, yes? So you feel tired, you feel sick. And then I referenced a verse where when one is enlightened, when one transcends all, then even when there's heavy sorrow, one is not rattled, one is not shaken, one is not sad. Enlightenment is the end game to challenges. As long as one is not enlightened, you're still in the game. This is the end of the game. This is the end of doership. So first you have to be tired of deservership, and then you start investing in ending doership. There are no challenges then. Remember I shared, the more there's doership, the more there's challenges, the more there's beership, the less there's challenges. We shift to our last verse on challenging. We are in chapter 6, verse 43. All of us are working hard and smart towards enlightenment. Yes? At least visually show me, yes? Now what happens if I contract COVID? What happens if I'm in a car accident? What happens if I die? And Prince Arjuna is thinking about this because this is more relevant to him, no? He has millions in front of him and millions behind. Even the people behind him accidentally could shoot an arrow at him, yes? So he's thinking the same. Bhagavan, you're teaching me to be like you. You are the death to death, but I'm still subject to death. So what's the point of all of this effort? Why should I evolve? If I'm going to die and I'm not going to be enlightened, I may as well enjoy. So that's addressed in this verse. Chapter 6, verse 43. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam. Labhate paurvadehikam. Labhate paurvadehikam. Yatate cha tato bhuyaha. Yatate cha tato bhuyaha. Samsiddhau kuru nandana. Samsiddhau kuru nandana. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam. Tatra means in your next life, your next birth, your next manifestation, what will you do? Buddhi yoga. Wherever you left off in one life, you will begin in the next life. That's what Bhagavan begins this verse with. Now, this verse is connected to the earlier verses, which I'm going to summarize for you. Have you ever thought about why you were born into the family you're born into? Most of the time you think about that negatively, yes? Why me? Why are my parents like this? Why did I have to have these siblings? We all think about that. Mostly in the negative, but here Bhagavan is approaching this objectively. Okay? Think very deeply and relevantly about your family right now. Try to analyze if your family is 1 or 2. I'm going to start with 1. Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe. In the home of those who are Shuchi and Shri, which means pure and prosperous. Have you been born into a home where there's purity and prosperity? Yes? No? If your relative is in this class, then don't answer. Just keep staring at me. Like there's some sort of spy language that's going on right now. When one is aspiring for enlightenment and there is a trace of rajas, rajas can be defined as desire or worldliness. When the body dies, they are born into a home of purity and prosperity where they can keep working hard and smart on letting go of that rajas to be fully sattvic. Now think of this practically. If you're born in a home of purity, the focus will be sattva, yes? If you're born into a home of prosperity, you don't have to worry about the world as much, yes? Because there's prosperity around you. You have that luxury, you have that privilege. My parents never had the privilege to focus on Vedanta when they were younger. There was not enough prosperity. My sisters and I have the privilege to focus on Vedanta because there was enough prosperity. You're all feeling me? That's 1. Here's 2. Yoginam dhimatam kule. Kule means in the family of yogis and dhimatam. A yogi is one who's ever trying to be better, and dhimatam, where there's a focus on knowledge. So betterment and knowledge. Now see the comparison here. The first, there's purity and prosperity. The second, there is betterment and knowledge. When one is trying to be enlightened, and there's no rajas, but the sattva is not complete. One is not into higher levels of sattva, then they're born into such a family, where there are yogis, where there are buddhimans. Are you born into such a home? Where everyone around you, every day is trying to be better. Where they're not satisfied with anger, not okay with jealousy. Dhimatam, where instead of listening to the news, they're listening to satsang. They're listening to Japa. Now, when I asked you this, a lot of you shook your head on this. This is a factual, objective analysis that Bhagwan is sharing with us about why we're born into the home we're born into. You analyze your own home. Please don't analyze the home of the next person. There's no Shuchi or Shri there. What's the third category? And also think, what kind of home are you nurturing? If you remember, when I spoke about parenting, I said the sole responsibility of a parent is to encourage enlightenment. Not IQ, not EQ, SQ, only spiritual quotient. IQ will come anyways. EQ they'll learn with life, but if a parent is not conscious about exposing and inserting SQ, that may never happen. So as you strive, as you aspire, if the body happens to die, everything that you've done in this last course, in this last year, in this last lifetime is not wasted. If you've ever played Capture the Flag, there's one version of the game where if you get the flag and you run towards your side and you get tagged, the flag doesn't go back to the original spot. It stops where you dropped it or you got tagged. And the beauty of this game is there's so much sacrifice then, right? I just bring it closer, then the next person brings it closer. This is what our journey is like. Capture the flag. You should tell people that. What did you learn in the Applied Gita course? That our life is like capture the flag. Next quarter. Labhate paurva dehikam. Whatever body one gains, the next body one gains, this is what they do with the body. They continue to grow. They continue to evolve. So magnifying this, focusing on application. How many of you have been to a funeral or a gathering of someone who is Hindu, part of Sanatana Dharma? You've all listened carefully to the pujari speak. Yes? And I'm sure the pujari, she or he said, this beta, this Rani, their Atma has gone from this Deha and is now in another Deha. And what they're saying is a complete lie. It's complete ignorance. There are, in a simple way, 3 facets to who we are. Body, mind, and spirit. If you go to a yogasana class, you would have learned this already, yes? Body, mind, and soul. Soul spinning. Soul exercises. So body, mind, and spirit. The body, here the word is deha. Do you know what deha means? And don't say body. Tell me in a deeper sense, what does deha mean? That which is burning. Deha means that which is burning and eventually is completely burnt. Sanskrit is a rough language, no? It's so shocking and lashing. The body is ever changing. Everyone agrees? Any fighters against this statement? No. The spirit, Atman, Brahman, etc., all synonyms, is never changing. Everyone agrees? Any fighters? If you want to fight this, then you have to join Meaningful Mornings, because I really feel I'm really systematically showing what the spirit is. And in between is the mind. The mind is sometimes changing. So ever, sometimes, never. You're with me? The body is born, the body will die. It is the mind that goes from body to body to body, learning. Learning that it is not the body, rather is the spirit. Clear? So this whole idea of, and we're very casual with language, reincarnation. If you dissect this, reincarnation doesn't happen. Please think about this very carefully. Is the body reincarnated, yes or no? It's a completely different body. Most likely, if you're not enlightened in this lifetime, just wanted to smile for a little while. The next body that you take up will probably be of the opposite gender. So did you reincarnate? You didn't. Okay, let's shift over to the spirit now. Does the spirit reincarnate? No, it never changes. Reincarnate into what? From infinity, it reincarnated into finitude. That's not possible. So now the mind, does the mind reincarnate? It doesn't either. It's the same mind. The mind is just going. Like a car, when your car goes from Niagara Falls to Toronto, do you say, my car reincarnated? It's the same car. It's just moved. So it's a very English, almost Abrahamic religion concept of the law of reincarnation, when nothing is reincarnated. The body stops. The spirit never moves. It is the mind that is moving. So in every family you're born in, every home you're born in, the mind keeps on moving. Okay? So the next time you happen to go to a gathering or a funeral, and the pujari says, the Atman has left this deha into another deha, you put your hand up. Even though it's not a question reflection period, you still put your hand up. I object. And you reference this verse. You will be kicked out right away, but that's dharma. Fearlessly, you share your insights. Now the third quarter. Yatate cha tato bhuyaha. In the next embodiment, manifestation, body, you work harder and smarter. See, if you're born into such a gehe or kule, you are fortunate. You are blessed. The momentum is already with you. That's why you work harder and smarter. Yatata means control, discipline. Bhuyaha, with greater intensity, with greater magnitude. One is engaged. You start to feel that every experience you go through is training. Every experience you go through is a teacher. That's how you know you're working smarter. Someone who's not working smarter, they don't know the purpose of why they're going through what they go through, so they keep feeling that they have problems. But someone who's working smarter, what am I supposed to learn from this? How am I supposed to grow from this? So all becomes training, all become a teacher, no? 2 days ago, I had a tough day with the kids. And at one point, Vyasa was riled up and Shuka was crawling all over me. And I held Shuka and I just stared at him. And I said, I need to be more patient with you. Not that he understood it, but I really was just verbalizing it to Sheila, that I need to be more patient with Shuka and Vyasa. I only feel that because of my immersion in Vedanta. And if I wasn't immersed in Vedanta, It's Shuka. He's such a bad kid. It's Vyasa. How come he always acts like that? Does that sound like good parenting? Does that sound like positive psychology? Not at all. This is what it means to work smarter. Clear? All is training. It doesn't matter how hard it is training. It doesn't matter how annoying your spouse or child is, or parent is. They are your teacher. With such a mindset, what happens is that you become less extrovert. See, one who makes a lot of excuses is an extrovert, right? They're looking outside, not inside. And the depth of this, the less extrovert you are, the less desires you have. The more extrovert you are, naturally the more desires you have. Remember that trace of Rajas that I talked about? That trace of Rajas is, I still have a desire for something in the world. And when you can purge that, you're born into a more sattvic family. And in that sattvic family, when you work harder and smarter, you go from sattva to pure sattva to the purest sattva. And then you're enlightened. Then this shloka is irrelevant. You're not born again. There's no more family or home. So less extrovert, less desires. And now the last quarter. Samsiddhau kuru nandana. How lovingly Bhagavan Krishna is calling Arjuna here. You are the Nandan of the Kauravas, of the Kurus. He's sharing your Nandana because you're so close to knowing your nature is Ananda. Every word, every name is so careful. Samsiddhau. Realize your nature is Ananda. Siddhi is position. I shared this in the Vedanta and Bhagavata course, in the Meditation and Life course. As you become more contemplative, you will develop siddhis. You'll hear things, you'll see things, you will be able to read people's minds. You have a position that nobody else has. But some siddhi is not position, it is peace. It is ananda. So here he's telling Prince Arjuna, you're already the one who has all of these siddhis. You're the best archer, you're the best husband. Out of all of the Pandavas, secretly, Devi Draupadi loved Prince Arjuna the most. He has that position. But here Bhagavan is not telling him, focus more on position. He's saying focus on peace. That's what some siddhi is. How this relates to us, how we can apply this. Develop the samskara that position is still of the world and peace is beyond this world. Okay, let me go lower and then higher. Worldly problems are not solved by worldly solutions. Yes? Worldly problems are solved by spiritual solutions. When you have the samskara that the worldly challenges that you're going through are not going to be solved by worldly solutions, that's when you're shifting from siddhi to samsiddhi. To develop that samskara. So now your question is, how do you develop this samskara? Steadiness, sincerity, stamina. Be steady with your sadhana. It does not matter what sort of outer conditions, what's happening to the world, be steady. In one of our classes, I shared with you, from right to left, Nitya karma, that's your regular responsibilities. Naimittika karma, special responsibilities. Kamya karma, selfish actions. Nishiddha karma, which is mean, or let's change it to vicious actions. The further right you go, the more responsible or dharmic you are. More important than special responsibilities is your regular responsibilities. If you brush your teeth every day, multiple times, etc., really you may never have to go to a dentist or orthodontist. You may not have to. Correct? You don't have to get into that. Naimittika karma. I never had braces. And perhaps some of that, and you may disagree with this, is that if you look after your teeth enough, you don't get cavities. Your teeth may be straighter. I share this because we always find reasons to focus on the special responsibility instead of the regular responsibility. It's still siddhi and not samsiddhi. Are you feeling me? I challenge all of you in the meditation and life course, or any satsang. There's so many satsangs you can be part of. Are you steady with a satsang, with a course? And if you are, you will see you will develop sincerity. If you develop sincerity, what comes next? Stamina. To keep on transcending anything that is challenging. Let's read this verse together. Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labhate paurvadehikam yatate cha tato bhuyaha samsiddhau kuru nandana. Om. Narayana.